Hello, and welcome to the next episode of the Live Your Spa Life show. Spa life is a lifestyle that accepts that accomplishment and harmony coexist. The spa and spa life, the SPA, is for seek power always, that power within you to do your greater work in the world. I am so thrilled to introduce to you my special guest for today, Michelle McGlade, who is a best-selling author, podcast host herself, a business strategist, and she helps, get this you guys, unsettled high achievers to step into their zone of genius. Michelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Diane.
Oh, great to have you. I want to dive into here about unsettled high achievers. What is that? What do you do with them? And what's that look like?
Yeah, I think for anyone who's a high achiever, they might know what I mean. You know, they get to a place where they're looking really successful on the outside, but they're feeling something is off on the inside. Something is not quite right. And they're feeling, honestly, if I'm going there for myself and my clients, they're feeling unhappy inside.
Yes.
And they're not quite sure what to do with that because you can't achieve your way out of that, you know?
Right. This is such an important conversation. I feel like this is happening more and more now. I was actually on a podcast myself yesterday, an interview where we were looking at one of the women I was talking to actually let go of her 7-figure business because it literally was not making her happy. And I know for some people, they think, why would you do that? However, if it's not what, sometimes be careful what you build, right? About what are you creating in your life to see, what that even looks like. And so it's really helpful to have some of those conversations because we don't always give ourselves permission to have those kind of conversations. And so I really appreciate that you really do go from that inside out approach and that you've actually become this compassionate guide for your people. How is it that you go about decoding the intangible?
It's an intuitive, it's based on experience, one. The second thing, it's based on just a high level of deep transformational coaching, two, and finding clients who are willing to go there. And three, it's about just being intuitive. It's using the intuition that I have developed. So I don't want to make it sound too hokey. I don't want to make it sound too woo. There is a process, but the process is different for everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I appreciate this myself because I know sometimes people look at absolute academia to get to a place of where they're at. And I believe that there is a distinction between knowledge and knowing. Yep. And when you really can have people tap into the knowing aspect and to actually trust ourselves, I mean, a lot of things, they're not necessarily coming from a book, and you are straight on about things coming from within us and actually coming from that place to trust ourselves. And are you finding with some of your clients that they get to a place where they're maybe not trusting themselves as much or they're second guessing themselves? Like, what do you feel is leading up to some of that, uneasy ground?
I think what's happening actually is they're starting to hear a voice within, and it's surprising them because what they've been doing is following the traditional path in our society, which is the report card syndrome, which is we're raised.
I love that.
Well, we're taught right from a very young age, right? Where do you fall on the report card?
Yes.
Move right into the traditional path in corporate America. What do? We measure ourselves on some type of report card, right? With a 360-degree review every year. Or if you're like me, I was in sales. And so how am I measuring up against quota? And so we continue, especially as a high achiever, wanting to put our best selves out there and do the best in our lives. We continue to follow this path and we continue a life of achieving against marks that were created for us. And at some point, that intuition gets loud enough. It was always there, but it gets loud enough and you're becoming unsatiated by all of the A's on your report card that you're stacking up. And you start looking around and you're going, is this it? Yeah. And this happens for some people in their 20s, in their 30s, in their 40s, in their 50s. It really just depends on when you're ready to listen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, and also I've noticed too with some of my clients that it can happen multiple times in your lifetime, right? You get to a place where it's like, right, we're in the party together here,
Yeah.
where it's just like, we've achieved certain things and we get there and it's like, okay, we're here. And, the step that we thought we were going towards needs to shift and change. And that can be kind of a mental dance of like, well, I thought I was going to continue here. I thought things were going to look like this. But I think it takes another level of braveness and strength to actually pivot and to actually listen to that voice, because that can be that internal struggle of I'm supposed to go here, but I'm being called to go here.
Yeah.
And so how do you navigate some of the questions around getting past that overachieving, I have to be doing this, that report card, versus I'm feeling a yearning, a calling to pivot?
Yeah, and I can really relate to this because in my corporate career, it was always I need to pivot, right? Like it was just like, I need to do something else. It showed up as I'm bored. This isn't what I want to do anymore. I need to get to the next level, or what is the next level? And so it was hidden, it was really hidden. And my very first calling, if you will, was when I finally made the decision, because it was something so deep inside that I couldn't ignore, to leave behind a successful career and start my own business. And I think that's when, because business is so personal and it's really a reflection of what's going on with us, that is when I began to uncover and discover what it really takes to start peeling those layers back that wasn't happening for me as I was developing a corporate career. Because it was just basically like, okay, you've done this, right? You've achieved. Now you've broken away. You've created a successful business. Who are you to want more?
Yes.
How can you now say that you're unhappy? And I had so much shame around this. But these are the things that were going on in my head. And that's probably what's going on for you, whoever's listening, if you're nodding your head like Diane and I are.
Yep. I hear you, sister.
Yeah. So that is what made me kind of sit up and take notice for the very first time is, why am I successful? Why did I do all the things? And I didn't follow the easy path, by the way. And now why do I want to change again and feel so shameful about it?
Right. Yes. Oh, I totally hear this. My friend, you may know Lisa Cherney. She has a podcast called, Get Effin' Real. Like, what is the real things that are popping up? And we've been having some of this conversation. Some people will call it, first world problems, or, here poor you, you're a successful. And that's where the shame and the not sharing part, because doesn't everyone want this type of thing? And when you're looking at it, it doesn't make you wrong, right? I mean, there may be a deeper calling for you. There may be a different pivot. There may be like just letting the foot off the gas a little bit to maybe enjoy other aspects of your life and different expressions of yourself. And I think it's so important to have these kind of conversations with mentors, with friends, with people that will actually hear the gnawing that's happening. Because one thing we do know is that when we suppress these things, it shows up in ways to get our attention. I know for me, when I was with the police department, I shattered my gun hand. It was a big wake-up call about shifting and changing. And I know that there are certain things that are disempowering us along the way. And I know that you've got several things that you experienced some disempowerment around your health and overworking and things along those lines. Can you share a little bit about what those disempowering moments were and how you moved through them?
Yeah, you and I are like tracking like right on, because what I was thinking the exact same thing, that what will happen is you won't listen to this inner voice and it will just get louder and louder and louder. And then it's going to literally hit you over the head. For me, one of the very first disempowering moments is actually, so my pattern began very early, so my high achiever came out from a very, very young age. And I started to ignore these voices from a very, very young age. So my very first moment or pivot that was where I was hit over the head was a health challenge when I was 19. I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. And it literally stopped me in my tracks, you know, at a time when it's supposed to be kind of the happiest, most evolutionary process, you know, getting out of the parents' house and really growing into your young adult self. I was dialing it back. I was finding a way to get through. I was not engaging at the level that I had been previously. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
did you tie that to, you know, I mean, sometimes the knocks on our body is to a cry to pay attention, to slow down, to make shifts. Was there some awarenesses that came out of that for you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I did all the things. So a lot of people have health scares. That's why I think this is a great story for me to share, is because if it didn't show up this way for you, a lot of people, it shows up in their body, right? And I did. I went on a journey to find my way back from that and to heal my body 100%, just using alternative approaches, which got me very passionate about that industry. But I didn't learn my lesson quite then.
Funny how that works.
I went on into that corporate America life and continued the report card syndrome and repeated that pattern several times until I really started to get it and see what that pattern meant for me, that it was a whole lot more than just my body not keeping up with my brain.
Right. Yeah. Are you willing to share what some of that insight was? Because I know that there's going to be some listeners that maybe they didn't have fibromyalgia, but they have some sort of health thing that's going on. And what I'm actually hearing from some people as well is like, I keep going to all these specialists. They can't really diagnose this, or they re-diagnose it. And then there's like all these other things. And, you know, through the process, there becomes some awareness that there is something else other than the physical body. The physical body is basically to get your attention, but it really reveals some other aspects. What were some things that got revealed to you?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, the connection between my emotional and spiritual well-being and symptoms that are showing up in my body, right? So I really had this is the first time I'm actually talking about this, so we'll see how this goes, but I really had a disconnect with my body. Like, I didn't want to feel in my body, because when you have chronic pain for years, you learn how to disassociate.
Yes.
And as I went on in the years and continued to push myself to the maximum and work, I was able to disassociate from feeling. Mm-hmm. And that became a way for me to continue to perform and work at levels that were really unhealthy for me. Yeah. And until I started to get more connected with who I was, what I wanted, to feel, you know, people shut this off through eating, shopping, alcohol, any sort of addiction you want to think of, right? They shut it off.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, I could see, I mean, we did this as a regular coping mechanism in the police department, was, you know, to compartmentalize, because, you know, when you're 911 and you're going from one tragedy to the next every day, all day for 12 to 14 hours, you have to have a way to, you know, shield yourself emotionally from those things that are happening. So, you know, a lot of people don't have that extreme, but just in life in general, we find ways to compartmentalize, to, you know, protect ourselves. You know, some people do it with clutter, right? Protecting yourself with things that are around you, or weight on our body. I mean, there's so many different ways that we build these barriers to have us. It's just thank you for sharing that, because it's so important for people to not feel alone in these experiences. Like, am I just crazy? You know, what is this association? Why do these things keep happening? You know, before they have those awarenesses and they make those connections and they make that happen. So I think having some tools to really have some awareness around that is really helpful.
Yeah. And I think what people would be shocked about, you know, from my story, is on the outside, you wouldn't see it. You wouldn't see it until the crisis showed up. You know, and the first crisis with fibro, you couldn't see, but I had other symptoms with that. The second crisis, or at least, I don't know if it was the second one, but the one I'm remembering at this point, I was like breaking out in rashes and hives, and it was completely unexplained. They didn't know exactly what was wrong with me. Maybe I had lupus, maybe I had this, maybe I had that, same exact thing.
Yeah.
So I would just stuff it all inside until all of a sudden it would be erupting really on the outside.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know that so many of our listeners can relate to this, and, you know, it's going to knock on your door, you know, loud enough at some point where you absolutely are going to have to do that. It got to the point where I was seeing this pattern so much that I actually created a process called PIES, P-I-E-S, to help people really move through those things. And so like the P is when you're kind of sit and you actually give yourself that time. And I know this is something you create some time for yourself as well, to really look at, you know, the P is the physical body, like what is going on with the body, because once you pay attention to that, you can actually do something about it. The I is about the intellect, like what's your brain trying to tell you, all the things are popping up, you know, to you. Some people call it the monkey mind. And then the E is the emotions, like what are the emotions that are coming up? What are they trying to tell you? And when you go through those three things, the final one, the S, is the spiritual message. So once you've cleared those things, what's the spiritual message? And you may hear that right away. You may hear that in the shower. You may hear it a couple days. But when you ask and you create the space and you're acknowledging that, you're actually able to, you know, move through that. And I know that's part of, you know, we talk about designing your life. And you have some tools that you use as well to really design your life and not live by default. Can you share some of those?
Yeah. The first one is self-care. That shouldn't be rocket science after the conversation we've had. But here's what I want to share with those of you listening is that this doesn't come natural, clearly, especially for women. A lot of people talk about it, but most people don't actually do it and do it consistently. So this is like literally on my schedule. I was working with a coach and I sent them over my schedule and they're like, oh my God, wow, that's amazing. You know, like I wish my day looked like yours. And I thought to myself, it can, but it takes a choice every day to create a couple hours to incorporate, you know, self-care for me. Doesn't feel pushed or rushed, right? And allows me space to show up however I am for the day.
Right.
And it's very conscious. And I have to constantly be checking myself.
Yeah. Well, because that can be the first thing people take off, like, oh, I can fit something else in here. And, you know, to not honor our own time. And I think, because I used to do that too. I would be like, oh, I could fit this in here, or, you know, no big deal. I could do it tomorrow, and just all the different things that can pop up, you know, the justifications. And the thing that really shifted that for me is the book Essentialism. And they talked about that you are the asset, and that, you know, if you kept putting that off long enough and you know, became sick or you weren't able to do your work, just think if you're the asset of your business and you aren't, you know, functioning on all cylinders, you don't have the clarity because you're exhausted or you can't move forward or people are relying on you. If you're not taking care of yourself, you can't take care of other people. You can't grow your business. You can't make your impact in the world. And so when we look at it as not a luxury, but an actual necessity, and I love that you put it on the calendar, because we really need to have that respect for ourselves to know that we're a priority and that we do make that happen. So I love that. This is good. So
thanks.
Perfect. So talk a little bit too about being present in the moment. You know, we hear a lot about, you know, being present. And it seems to me that becomes, unless it's a choice, right? It's a decision about how you're living your life. It can be very distracting, you know, to just life in general, you know, the classic squirrel where it's like, you know, all these shiny objects that are around here. What are some of the things that you do to really be present, you know, either with yourself or with other people?
Yeah. And this is also a huge, I mean, these are like the two things that if you ask me what would be the hardest thing for me to do is one, to take care of this body that I'm in. Be present, because I was the child, and I'm sharing this because I know you can relate, whoever's listening here, that I just wanted to hurry up and get to the end of the book. I didn't want to look at the pictures. I just wanted to hurry up and get to the end. Mm-hmm. So practicing presence it almost seems like it would be impossible for me. Mm. And what I can tell you after the journey I've been on is it still feels impossible, but it's just about showing up and doing your best job every day. So one of the things that has helped me a lot is a gratitude journal.
Yes.
And gratitude not based on, 10 years ago, gratitude based on right now, what is happening for me that I am so thankful for.
I love that mindfulness that brings you to the moment where it's not like, well, what was I grateful for, last year or 5 years, 10 years, but right now in the moment, because it's like being present in the moment, you actually are gathering from things that are presently experiencing. So just anchoring that in even deeper.
Yeah. The other piece is, you could say meditation, but I have done meditation, but I can't claim it yet to be a practice that has helped me nail the present moment. The other thing though that I do is I lost it. Has this happened to you after 40?
It happened to me yesterday, girlfriend. Yeah, it's a thing. And I know that our listeners they're just cracking up right now because they're driving somewhere and they can't remember where they're going. Right. Yeah, and this is actually perfect for what we're talking about because there's so many different things that we have going on at once. We want to share a lot of things. We want to be part of certain things, like certain things come up. Yeah. And I think what's really important and, especially I know a lot of our listeners are drive when they listen, or they're at the gym or they're multitasking, right? They're doing a lot of different things. And I just wanted to present this right now because, as our listeners are listening to this right now, I want you guys just to take like a deep breath, right? To just get yourself present right now, because there could be a part of your brain right now is like, oh, I know this, right? Yeah. I know to do self-care. I know to have time for myself. I know to be present. Like, I know this. However, the distinction that you are talking about is we know it, but are we doing it? Are we living it? And are we consistently doing it? Are we not just doing it once a month or whenever it fits in? But if you think about this right now, how many times are you bumping the things off your calendar that were meant for you, to take care of you, to actually be present with someone who's in front of you? It's a skill and it's not easy. And it's easy to say, I'm going to do this, but to actually have the practice of it is a completely different thing. So I really wanted to present that because we do hear the words, but we don't necessarily shift our being or how we express that or how we're living our life. And I think that leads to people going, how did I get here?
That really helped me come back to one of the things I was looking forward to sharing with all of you, which is for me, not having been like a big worker outer sort of gal my whole life, I now am practicing Bikram yoga. And that has been a great teacher of the present moment for me. The breathing, of course, Diane, but pushing and being in my body so that I can, execute through the poses effectively and safely. But then what I have learned, or why it has been such a strong teacher for me, is when I am so present in that way, that is when the most creative and aha ideas come to me. And that's how I know I'm there.
Yes. This is so important. I don't know if you've been doing this with some of your clients, but I've been really guiding them to take more things off their calendar to create more space, because in the age of like where everything's at your fingertips and electronics is always around us, we tend to not have any days off. And, where we're completely actually shut off. And until we actually have some more of these, and, I'm speaking to myself as well, because I've pushed through some of this myself, right? It's like we're teaching these things we need to master. Yeah. But when we do this, then we're actually give ourselves the space to come up with those new creative ideas, to see what's possible and what's happening. When we're so much in the minutia of this is this, blah, 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 like Charlie Brown's teacher, it's like no more is actually going in. We're just going through the motions, and it may feel like we're getting more things done per se, but we're not actually enjoying the experience of it. And so I love you sharing what's like on the other side of that, of what is actually you being fully in your power, is doing things like Bikram to really be in your body. And then when you're in your body, you can have better access to your spirituality and to your emotions and just, all of those aspects. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit too about following your intuition. You mentioned about being fully in your power by following your intuition. How has that shifted for you in your life as far as accessing it more, utilizing it, trusting it, and teaching it with your clients?
Oh my God. I love this question. Before I go right there, I do want to preface it by saying that I've done it the other way, where oh my gosh, I'm going to hire someone like an organizer. I'm going to sign up for this course. It's going to teach me how to, just be a rock star at my calendar management. I've tried all the things and they only work for a tinge. And then I go back to my old ways. So I'm not really changing who I am on the inside. I'm just trying to put new clothes on the outside, if that makes sense.
I totally get that.
Yeah. And when I started to do the inside work first and really listen, going back to your question about the intuition, really listen to what my inner voice had to say, that's when things started to dramatically change. That's when shifts started happening with kind of that ease instead of pushing constantly. It's almost oh, that was not as difficult as I thought it would be. And the more space I create, which means the more present I am, the less I'm doing, the more space I'm creating, and the more abundance that is coming into me. And that sounds like a freaking bunch of flower language, the woohoo stuff. But here's what I know. I've tried it both ways.
Yeah.
I promise you which way works better is this way.
Right. You can do it the hard way or the way that works.
Yeah. And the thing is that I knew this all along. I knew this from the time I was very young. I had something kind of special and sensitive and intuitive about me. I always was feeling the things around me and inside of me, but that got pushed down very, very deep and covered up with the report card syndrome stuff that we talked about. And it's taken quite a while to unpeel it. And I figure if that's happened to me, it's happening to quite a few people out there.
Definitely. Yeah. Definitely. It's so important just to have that awareness and trust that, and trust that is, it wouldn't pop up for you if it wasn't to guide you somewhere or, lead you in the next direction of what you're doing. And I think that when we are really consciously creating the things that we are doing, it has such far-reaching, impact of how we experience our life and what that looks like. Which reminds me, one of the things I love asking my guests is, because I think the environment, the environments that we create really impact our experience. And so we would have a different experience in our bedroom versus our kitchen versus our living room. Mm-hmm. So what is your favorite room in your home and why?
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, in my home, it's very easy. It's my bedroom because I have positioned it so I can have my coffee or tea or whatever I'm having in the morning and look right out at the mountains. And that's really what it is. It's the mountains. I live in just a beautiful area in Vermont and I have a beautiful view. So I could be sitting on my patio, but we get quite a bit of snow. So it's the bedroom.
Nice. I love that so much, this sanctuaries. I was speaking with someone who I did an interview with earlier today, and she has a dollhouse in her backyard.
Ooh.
It used to be there from the previous owners, and her husband created it so that he made it adult size. So she has it as this little sanctuary to go away to. And she actually doesn't live that far from me. So I'm going to go visit her dollhouse. And it's just so fun to see just what we create. And it makes a difference in how we feel and how we experience our life and what that looks like. And so I love just how you've really gotten clear about how present you're being, how you're going from intuition, and how you're helping people really access that for themselves. And I know that our listeners are going to want to stay, connected with you. How can they best do that?
Easy. Just head on over to my website. It's michellemcglade.com.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, I love all the wisdom that you have shared here. Do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share with our audience?
You know, I just want you to know that this journey it's not natural. It doesn't feel natural. And certainly in the world and the people that we're surrounded with, it definitely feels very unnatural. But if I can do this, if I can move through this, I know that it's completely possible for you.
Oh, perfect. Thank you, Michelle, so much. I so appreciate you being here and sharing your time and wisdom with us. And also for our clients and our listeners here, I just want to thank you for sharing your most precious resource, which is your time, to be here with us and to be part of this conversation. And we would love whatever forum that you're listening to this or watching this on, to put in like your thoughts or your comments or what ahas or what are you going to do? Like, I know that there's a part in here today that you heard that you've maybe heard before, but what are you actually going to incorporate into your life? And I'd love for you to tag both of us and share with us what that is, because that's how we build awareness and community, and we get more of those things out there. We will put Michelle's website in the show notes, so you'll be able to get that. I also have my resetyourpowergift.com, so you can also have some additional tools to stand in your power, because we really want you to know it's within you. Like, it's not, you don't have to learn something new, and it's not all out there somewhere. The conversation we're having here today is that it's within you. You have to trust that, you have to listen to that and move into that place. So I just want to leave you with that thought, and until we connect again, live your spa life. Bye for now. See ya.